username, and the third part is the password. But which is the most important part? DBAs you can't answer. Which is the most important part? Server name. Anybody want to go for a different one? Password. Anybody want to go for the username?
All of them.
All of them. Okay, that's a good answer too. Actually, all of them is a good answer. However, I want you to think about something. Let's go back to that concept of the car. I've got a Maserati. I really don't. I'm just saying that to you, okay? I've got a Maserati that is decked out. If I was to give you the location, you the security code, and you the keys, and y'all can't work together, who's most likely to get it steal it? The person that has the location, the server address. That is, and even if I gave one person both the keys and the security code, they would have a whole lot harder time getting it than the person that knows where it is. You need to keep your SQL server location as secret as you can if you want to have it that way. Use that term. Therefore, in your data connection string, you should always use a non-routable address. For those of you that aren't sure what I mean when I say non-routable, that means when you get outside your network, for instance, one like this, 192.168.1.100, one of those that you get when you set up your Linksys wireless router, you go out somewhere in the internet and try to type that in and it won't go anywhere. It's not routable. Now, what is the very best way to do this? Use Windows authentication. It's not always possible, I understand. But using Windows authentication, all of this information is kept pretty well hidden because you're using the computer's information that's there. You're just telling it to use it. So that's the very best way. It's not always possible. The other concept that I want you to think about is you don't want to have the connection available on the standard 1433 point to mysqlserver.com, your domain name, because that makes it readily available wherever you've got it hidden. Okay? You want to keep that as quiet as you can. This is your first layer of security for your data connection string, and it is probably the most important. If you do this right, encryption only helps keep people happy and is a little extra layer on the top. Okay? This is the important thing. You've got to keep the server name, the address of the server specifically. Username and password is good to keep quiet too, but specifically the address as quiet as you can. Now, supposedly people can't get your web.config file. Yeah, somebody's got an FTP password. Somebody walks past your desk when you've got the web.config file open. It can happen. Keeping it within the company helps a lot. Let's talk about encryption for a minute. You know, encryption is easy. It's the decryption that gives us the issues. For instance, we can take a BCS and we can say, okay, I'm going to encrypt the password. We're going to do it real hard here. We're just going to reverse the password's order. Okay? Problem we have with this is that the SQL server says, oh, that's not a valid password. And you say, oh, okay, so something has got to decrypt the password. So how do we encrypt these things, make them where they're not plain text, make them to where people cannot see them, and use them easily, and yet be able to use it in the SQL password? Well, there's another problem that exists. But let's go on to how do we decrypt these? At what level? Well, .NET new people, first thing we always want to do is write a module, right? What's the problem with this approach?
All the existing modules already look at the SQL data using connections.
Okay, existing models work. You look at the existing connection string, but there's a much, much bigger problem with this. You can't get there. The application has got to get the data to the database before it can load the module. This will never work. Okay? So if we can't do it at module level, where's the next place we think about doing it? Obviously, we need to do it at the core then. Well, I'm pretty sure the core team is not going to put in a standard encryption, decryption module because somebody would want to do something else. But even at that, think of it this way. I have a module. There's two ways to get that data encryption. the data connection string. One way is to call the .NET new configuration namespace, which most people probably do. The other way is to call the ASP.NET namespace, connection string namespace. Okay? So if we bypass the .NET Nuke and they hit it in the core and went straight into the connection string, it doesn't work. So the big thing about .NET Nuke, the extensibility, is also one of our Achilles heels that we have to pay attention to. So what do we do? Here, well, I suggest we pick up the phone, call Mr. Bill, or maybe Mr. Balmer, and say, we want you to do this at the framework level. That's a wonderful idea. They hadn't done it at the framework level. The interesting thing is they did it in ASP.NET 1. Amazing, isn't it? Some of you have seen a utility called ASP.NET _reg IISEXE. It's used for several different things. One of the things that it does is that it offers encryption. There's 4 flags: PEF, PE, PDF, and PD. I don't know what the P stands for. I guess program. E and D's, you could say, stood for encryption and decryption, and F is probably for file, because if you use the F, you have to give it a physical file directory. If you don't use the F, then you have to give it a application flag and an application directory. Each of these has very similar syntax, and since I'm running low on time, I'm going to flip through these real fast. You can get these in the slide deck. It is already up on the website. And I also have examples of usage here. And so we're going to go in, and I'm going to prove to you that this concept works. First of all, we have a web.config file open in Visual Studio, okay? And you can see the connection string and the app settings here. Just as plain as day. We have Visual Studio command prompt open, and I have a text pad here that has the things that we need to put in so that I don't have to type it out. You'll notice we have the name, the PEF flag. We're looking for the connection string settings section, the place where that web.config file is located. Be very careful. If you put a slash after it, it will not work. We have to give it a provider. In this case, we're using the data protection configuration provider. There is a second provider that is available. It is the RSA. I don't remember all the name of it, but it uses RSA instead of this connection, which is, if you're using a web farm, you will have to go to that or write your own protection provider, because this one uses machine keys as part of the way of encrypting. And of course, you can't do that across multiple machines. So we take that, copy it, paste it up here. Well, somehow or another, I managed to get the wrong thing in there. I must not have copied the right thing. I must have pasted it. Copy these. And we put this in and paste and hit enter. And it says, okay, we succeeded. Well, let's go look at our Visual Studio. And sure enough, it says, hey, the web.config file has been modified. You want to reload it? And you see now the connection strings have added an attribute, and it is now in a cipher value. Now, the interesting thing is we haven't changed our .NET Nuke application. We can come in here and do a refresh, and it works. Of course, it'll take a second to load because it starts the application over when you save your web.config file, but it works fine. You can still go in here and look at the password, just like we did before. Go in. We have not changed that at all. The framework handled the decryption for us. Okay? The decryption works essentially the same way. You just don't have to you use a slightly different syntax. You use the D, and you don't have to put the configuration provider in. It's just taking a second. There you go. And of course it decrypts. So that works wonderful. Now there are some caveats to that, and one of them is how many in here host sites on shared web servers? A lot of people do. Guess what? They're not going to give you the ability to run this command, right? In comes ASP.NET 2, where they made this programmable. So that's what we're going to look at next. We're going to go in here and we're going to look at how you program this. Now, I want to show it to you on slide.